Hello, everyone, and welcome to Field Nation's webinar on field service trends and predictions. Thank you so much for joining us. Let's wait for a few seconds to bring in more audience to join. So thank you again for joining us. Very excited to be here with you today. My name is Wael Mohammed. I am EVP of Strategy with Field Nation. Been with Field Nation for about 8 years and in technology in general for about 30 years. And very excited to be here with you today talking about field service trends and predictions that have been shaping 2024 and will continue to shape 2025 and probably beyond that, and hopefully leave you with strategies for success in 2025. This webinar is really designed for the growth-oriented field service leaders. We do know that the macro environment has been shaping in a very mixed way and has some gloomy picture out there for what it looks like. But again, we're very positive about some of the key micro trends in the field services industry in general, and we're here to share some of them. Driven by a lot of our view of the market and also the data that runs through our marketplace. For those of you who are not familiar with Field Nation, we are the #1 labor services marketplace for the on-site technology field services market. And we have over 1.2 million jobs, we call them work orders, that run through our marketplace every year. We are getting close to approach $500 million of value exchange on our marketplace. Really a lot is happening on Field Nation every year, which gives us the virtue to see a lot of these trends as they shape up. And so we're sharing some of them with you today, hoping that you can take them back and help you with your strategic planning exercise and help you see really some of the key growth potential in the market. We're going to talk particularly about the state of the market. We're going to start by talking a little bit about the macro environment and how it has been shaping in 2024 and potentially continuing to shape in 2025 and potentially beyond. Some of how that has been challenging for the industry, for field services, but also how it could be really driving some of the key opportunities and actions that you can take from that. What's next for retail? We pay extra attention to retail at Field Nation. We think it's really a big key driver for the field services spend. It's most likely responsible for over 65 to 70% of the field services spend. So we pay a little bit extra attention to retail. And then looking also at the different technology categories and how these are shaping some of the growth in the industry, and leave you with some insights to take home to shape your strategic planning for 2025 and beyond. Again, this webinar is really designed for the growth-oriented field services leader. To start talking about the market in general, it's fair to say, and I don't think it's a secret for anybody to say that 2024 was one of the most challenging years, not only for field services industry, but for the entire macro environment. Many economists called this, or gave it an acronym, they called it a VUCA environment. VUCA here stands for volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity, which is a term that they borrowed from the post-Cold War era, which was also characterized by some of this ambiguity. And depends on how you look at this, there are so many different factors that shape this VUCA. From demand volatility, demand really was not consistent throughout the last potentially couple of years. Also inflation that really impacted the prices of the components, the raw materials, and even the end products. And the inflation here, while we see the CPI, the last numbers of the CPI show an average somewhere around 2.9%. So indeed, there was success to bring it down to lower than 3%. However, that is an average view of the world. When you really look deeper and look at especially the services inflation, the core services, which drives some key part of field services in general, inflation was still reigning supreme. In fact, the core services inflation is somewhere hovering between 4 and 5%. And so services inflation is still sticky. Uncertainty, especially characterized by the high cost of borrowing and the mixed consumer signals on spend. And also when it comes to complexity, some of the ever-increasing customer expectations, supply chain disruptions, and the ever-challenging labor marketplace, especially when it comes to highly technical or qualified labor. And then, as if this all is not enough, we're still facing some ambiguity in the quarters to come, mainly because of the change in administration. This could bring in new winds as it relates to differences in economic policies, in trading policies, and as if again this is all not enough, we are witnessing geopolitical tensions, unrests, and wars in the globe, and this is all bringing this really challenging environment. This challenging environment, which was over the last 2 years, again, some economists put it as one of the most challenging in the last several decades, had its projection on the field services industry. So in this survey that Verizon conducted to get an insight from the field service execs as to what was really posing most challenges for them, these 6 particular challenges were key challenges for the field service execs: meeting customer expectations, the erosion of profit margins, difficulty in securing highly qualified labor, the ever increasing dispatch inefficiencies and how that costly is in the P&L, and also definitely competitive pressure, especially with the volatility in demand, and the increasing complexity of services, especially in the light of the proliferated supply chains and the disruptions of these supply chains. At Field Nation, when we talk to our customers, we see that the top 3 are particularly the biggest challenges, meaning the ever-increasing customer expectations, the erosion of profit margins, and securing access to quality technicians. These are some of the biggest challenges, but also opportunities in front of the field service leaders to act on. And this has also been aggravated, especially from the supply side, by the shortage of labor, especially for the field services industry. On the top chart, McKinsey published this to show that at a macro level, there is still shortage in the supply side, in the labor market. So what this shows really is the gap between supply and demand, between labor and open jobs. And though this has reduced to 2.6 million gap between the open jobs and the available labor, this is only at the macro level. When you peel the onion and look under the surface, and particularly take a look at the field services industry, particularly, especially based on the TSIA data, has been facing a little bit of a more aggravated picture, especially because of the aging demographic of field services technicians. So you can see here, 75% plus of field services technicians are 40 years of age and above, which is posing a challenge because this demographic is not being replaced by a younger generation that is ready to take on this technical work. We see at our end in Field Nation that some of the lower skill field services work has been, the shortage of labor eased a little bit there, but the highly technical work still is a challenge, especially for the level 2s and level 3s kind of technicians, the more qualified technicians. That is still a challenge, and it's structural, and it's here to stay. So this is yet one more challenge for the field services industry. And when it comes to looking at one of the key drivers on field services spend, which is retail, we do believe that retail drives around 65 to 70% of field services spend. The growth levels on retail at the average and the macro level over the last 2-3 years have not been the same compared to the post-COVID pent-up demand. When you look at this chart on the right-hand side, the pent-up demand that happened post-COVID, which drove the retail to grow at anywhere between 15 to 17%, which was like really amazing growth. That was mainly driven by a lot of money in the hands of consumers. You're familiar with the $2.4 trillion of stimuli packages that the government went ahead with, and this put a lot of money in the hands of consumers. They went shopping, and this really gave retail the opportunity to spend a lot of capital expense in renewing their assets, renewing their technology infrastructure. That has not maintained itself. That growth has not maintained itself over the last 2 to 3 years because of the mixed signals in the consumer demand, and because of inflation. That drove retail sales to be a little bit muted when you compare it to that pent-up demand post-COVID. So retail sales grew In 2024, it is projected that the numbers are not like completely officially out yet, but it's projected to be somewhere around 3.4, 3.5%, which is not the same compared to a few years ago, of course. So this also drove a little bit of a challenging picture for field services because one of the key drivers of the field service spend, which is retail, not been growing at the same pace. This is all like, so you'd wonder, this is not painting the most positive or the most rosy picture out there, but that's the macro level picture. Don't get misguided by the macro level picture. We love to embrace and love you to embrace the granularity of growth picture, which is to really look at this macro environment picture and not be misguided by it. Really peel the onion and look underneath the surface. And when you do so, you're going to be really surprised by a lot of, or several markets that are witnessing growth. So when you look at that granularity of growth and take it as an approach, especially looking at the market through segmenting it through the lens of two dimensions. The first dimension is the verticals, and the second is technologies. You start building that grid with cells in the grid where you're going to really see growth underneath the surface. So verticals here, not the macro level verticals. So we're not talking retail. We're talking looking under that retail with a capital R and seeing retail grocery, looking into retail pharmacy, retail convenience, looking really under the surface of the bigger sectors and looking into the micro segments of these bigger sectors and seeing which ones of them are growing, as well as the technologies that are driving that growth and building that grid. And when you build that grid, you really see a little bit of a different picture from the gloomy picture that the macro environment might be driving. So we want to embrace this approach moving forward, and we really embrace this approach here at Field Nation. And through the virtue of having a lot of that data that runs through our marketplace, we get to see which cells are being activated, which cells are growing, which cells are shrinking. And once you see that picture, you really get to see that there is still a lot of growth opportunities, just like how do you capitalize on that? And our hope today is to leave you with a few insights about which of these cells are growing by digging a little bit more into the micro picture and not be misguided by the macro picture out there. So looking into the different verticals, the verticals dimension of this granularity of growth approach, and paying a little bit extra attention to retail, as one of the key drivers of growth in field services, there are 6 key micro trends. Now we're shifting from talking about macro trends to talking about micro trends. There are 6 key micro trends that are driving growth in retail. And once you peel the onion, look beneath the surface and look really into these micro trends and start to analyze them a little bit and see which retailers they influence and how you can capitalize on that, you start like really seeing a growth picture. So these six micro trends are particularly the fast-paced openings and closures of some of the retail chains out there and their stores, and consolidations or M&As, the continuous digitalization of the in-store experience, bringing more efficient and briefer, smaller store formats, the back office automation and the transformation that the large format retail is going through, and the protection of the assets in terms of whether it is the in-store equipment or the inventory to prolong the lives of the assets and embrace loss prevention strategies to increase the profitability and ensure the longer life of the assets to reduce the capital expense that is spent into new deployments and new equipment. So these are some of the key micro trends that we see, and we're going to take a deeper look into each one of them and see how they are influencing some retailers, and hopefully leave you with some insights on how you can track this growth and how you can empower your sales team to go prospect in these territories and be ready for any activity there. So when you talk about store openings, particularly, you can look at this news as if it is negative, but we think it's not. So store openings are flat from a growth standpoint in 2024 and from 2024. So moving into 2025, there is relatively stability in this, which we view as a positive. So there is not massive drop in the number of store openings. So far, CoreSite announced that 5,800 stores announced to be going to be open in 2025. 1,300 of them from Dollar General and Dollar Tree. We didn't show it here in the chart because it would take really it would skew the scale significantly. But when you look at what kind of stores are opening in 2025, the picture is not bad at all because it is still stable from 2024. There is no drop, massive drop in the numbers. 1,300 from Dollar General, Dollar Tree. Boot Barn is opening 60 stores. Barnes and Noble is opening new stores. This chain has really rebounded, which is great. Target opening 30 stores. Costco 29 stores, and many others here that are opening new stores. So this is really a positive that we're not seeing or witnessing a drop in the store opening activity from 2024. This is conducive to meaningful field service work, including cabling, new distribution frames, wireless access points, the end-to-end new store opening, field service work, security, IP cameras, storefront, point of sale equipment, and definitely digital signage. So this is still a positive. We view it as a positive when you compare it to the macro environment. It is a little bit stable from 2024, and it's not dropping significantly. One key activity that many look at as a negative, and we don't view it as a negative, is store closures. And the reason we don't look at it as a negative is that it has a positive side to it. When you look at the store closures, it is an activity that is conducive to field service work, and we're going to talk about this in a second, but many chains are closing some stores, including Party City, Big Lots, Advanced Auto Parts, Walgreens, and CVS. The majority of store closures are in discount retail. This particular segment, this particular vertical within retail went ahead and opened many stores post-COVID to take advantage of the pent-up demand back then. But then it's obvious here that they are readjusting to the true picture of demand. What's positive about the store closures here is that this is conducive to field service work. It's conducive to decabling, and this is major activity, decommissioning of the equipment, boxing, labeling, migration, and reuse of that equipment. And definitely, this also leaves the remainder of the stores to enjoy more intensive technology for footprint. Retailers find that when they have less number of stores, they have the ability to focus their investments, to focus their capital expense on the remainder of the stores, and that really is conducive to more technology service work in these remaining stores. So do not look at store closures as a negative micro trend at all. This is, from a field service work, conducive to really meaningful spend and meaningful field service work that you should capitalize on. And there are many chains here that you should track closely and take a look at how to engage with this field service work. Another activity that we see typically overlooked is consolidations and M&As. This is really an activity that is conducive also to field service work. And when you peel the onion on the retail and start looking into which verticals are hot when it comes to M&As, particularly convenience and grocery. And there is a reason for that. Grocery and convenience are two verticals in retail that need access to a broader geography, to more locations. And the way that they get access to this broader location base is by acquiring these locations, especially in locations that they don't have presence or locations that they see that they need more presence. So there are many actually meaningful M&A activities here. Aldi already announced in 2025, they are acquiring 400 stores from Winn-Dixie, 7-Eleven, Sonoco, 200 plus stores, Casey's, Safco, and many others here. Casey's, also Circle K and Mapco, and many others here that you really need to pay attention to. This M&A activity is conducive to meaningful field service work. We expect that this is going to trend up, particularly in the second half of 2025. And keep watching the grocery and convenience chains, especially the ones that we are showing here. This is conducive to rebranding work, point of sale systems integration work, security systems integration, and more intensive digitalization. And many that we talk to, many that we talk to really are excited about this, but many others also overlook it. So make sure that you don't overlook the M&A activity. It is conducive to really meaningful field service spend. And then when it comes to some of the key micro trends that are also happening in retail, one that is very exciting is many retail chains in the last couple of years have been experimenting with this briefer, smaller format retail. It is conducive to multiple efficiencies here. Number one, it is a smaller format, so it enables retailers to have a much higher profitability, much higher revenue per square foot of retail. It also is conducive to a much briefer, faster, more focused shopping experience for the consumer. And it is much more conducive to a better alignment with the online channel. And it is intensive in terms of technology. So many chains are experimenting with this, and actually this is going into a little bit more mainstream for some chains like Macy's, Kohl's, IKEA, Walmart. So many big chains are opening some of these small store formats, and this is conducive to significant field service work, including self-service kiosks, which these formats really require a mobile point of sale, and the briefer self-checkout formats that are more aligned with smaller store areas. And because these stores are very intensive in terms of the technologies that they have and in terms of the devices, they require more advanced wireless infrastructure, more of the new Wi-Fi 6E or Wi-Fi 7. So more Wi-Fi upgrades and new Wi-Fi infrastructures in these stores are expected, and definitely digital signage. So very excited about this new micro trend, and many of the big chains of retail are embracing it. So this is something you really should watch closely. Macy's, Kohl's, IKEA, Walmart, and many others are taking this into the next level, and this is conducive to meaningful field service spend. Another key micro trend that is happening in retail, and it's very exciting. In the past, the large store format retail was always an issue, and it was always challenging for retailers to think of because it has many inefficiencies associated with it, especially in relation to the massive area that is not really conducive to revenue or profitability. Retailers now have moved this large format retail into fulfillment centers. So the large format retail is becoming more fulfillment centers as well as retail areas. And micro fulfillment is a key micro trend that many of the big chains are embracing to enable omni-channel fulfillment, enable e-commerce fulfillment, and enable inventory hubs that would serve the same store and would serve other stores in the region. This really supports e-commerce growth and supports much more efficiency for large format retail, and is conducive to meaningful field services work, especially around robotics that are needed for the warehousing and the automation of that, advanced cabling and wireless infrastructure to support a lot of the inventory management and control capabilities required for this micro trend to take shape, and for the RFID required for it. And some of the key capabilities from dock to shelf to cross-docking required to enable faster move for the in-transit inventory and to enable better turnover for the inventory. So this is another key micro trend that is very exciting in large retail that you should pay a lot of attention to. And we talked about how retail is paying maximum attention to loss prevention, and that this is a very costly problem in retail. Not only that, they're also paying attention to prolonging the assets and the asset life in general in terms of equipment in the stores. So when you look at loss prevention, which is a highly costly problem in retail, retail has been installing all sort of integrated security systems. The cool thing is that the modern integrated security systems, especially the cameras, OEMs have gone ahead and manufactured or introduced into the market new advancements that bring the capability to leverage these cameras to collect data on the shopper behavior and go back to the retailers with all sort of analytics offerings to enable them to analyze the data around the shopping behavior, the shopper path to purchase, and optimize their assortment, optimize the walking experience of the consumers. And retailers really love this because it's providing them with all sort of optimizations around the assortment and all sort of optimizations around how to maximize on the shopping cart value of the consumers. And this is conducive to more field service work around security camera and integrated systems upgrades. Most of these systems require power over Ethernet, so this also requires new cabling infrastructure, if not there. And a lot of the sensors associated with it require wireless infrastructure. So again, the upgrades from Wi-Fi 6 to Wi-Fi 6E and Wi-Fi 7 to support the bandwidth required to send the data securely to the cloud. So we talked about really a lot of micro trends in retail that are shaping growth in 2025. And this is really exciting, but also quick serve restaurants is one of the verticals that we like to pay attention to because it's conducive to not only growth, but meaningful field service work. So one of the real positives when it comes to quick serve restaurants is that the number of quick serve restaurants during COVID took a little bit of a dip, but the really positive news is that this is coming back and growing again. So when you compare the number of quick serve restaurants by the end of 2024, which was 211,000, to before COVID, there is an increase of 8%. So this is really positive news. And these QSRs are taking their game to the next level when it comes to the drive-through technology and the delivery capabilities. And that is because 70% of their revenue is coming from drive-throughs and delivery. So they're really embracing expanding their drive-through lanes, bringing in a very robust drive-through technology to enhance the experience of the consumer. But not only that, to also bring the experience of the consumer to be an enjoyable one, and to enable or empower the store attendant, that attendant behind the window, to serve the consumer with the best recommended menu. So there is a new wave of outdoor menu boards that are intelligent enough to provide the store attendant or the seller behind the window, the server behind the window with predictive selling capabilities. There are the cameras. There are this new wave of ODMBs are equipped with can take a look into the car and the profile of the family or the individual in the car to recommend personalized menu. This is conducive to sensors and cameras in the drive-throughs, new generation of outdoor menu boards and the upgrades associated with that. And for those who like to go into the store, into the quick serve restaurant, there are self-order kiosks that accelerate the experience, provide a payless experience that many of the younger generations require. And for the delivery, the parking lot experience, especially the technologies associated with that, similar to buy online, pick up in store, that requires more advanced wireless infrastructure to support all these devices, including definitely, again, the upgrades to Wi-Fi 6E and Wi-Fi 7. There is meaningful amount of field service work that is happening in QSRs because of the new wave of intelligent drive-through technology that we're just talking about. So there is really great amount of work still in retail when you peel the onion, look underneath the surface, and really take a look at the verticals and which areas are growing. This looks into the dimension of the verticals that we talked about from a granularity of growth standpoint, but there is another dimension that relates to technologies. And there are several technologies that are also hot and are growing. And that you need to also really bring into the equation to make sure that you're ready for these areas of growth. And we're going to go through some of those that we really see very hot and will continue to be hot for quarters to come. So when it comes to integrated security systems that we just talked about, this is an area that was hot for the last couple of years and will continue to be hot for quarters to come. We talked last year about how loss prevention in retail was a $110 billion problem. NRF projects that this is going to continue to be problematic for retail, and they are assessing it to be around $140 billion of a problem in 2025. It's costing retail anywhere in the ballpark of $140 billion in loss prevention. So this is inventory shrinkage. So this is definitely a big area of interest for retail to make sure that they're not shrinking inventory and they are not and this is not impacting their profitability. So as I mentioned earlier, when we were talking about some of the micro trends in retail, one of the key advancements in integrated security systems, and especially in IP cameras, is the ability of these cameras, by the advancements that the OEMs have gone to the market with, to collect shopping behavior, to collect the shopping, the consumer pass through the store, and provide the retailers back with insights and analytics that help the retailers optimize their assortment, position the inventory or on the shelves in a way that provide the shoppers with the best path to purchase, the least friction path to purchase, and maximize on the shopping cart value. And this is conducive to really significant field service work in this integrated security market and in the upgrades of these IP cameras. Another technology, and I'm sure that a lot of you are aware about this, that is booming in the market, whether that is because of the AI advancements or because of the all the migrations to the cloud. All these devices now are not leveraging local storage as they used to, but they leverage the cloud, the enrichment on the data formats that are driving really the storage to the next level. Data centers is one of the most booming technology areas. And according to Bloomberg and many other research institutes that look into this, this is one of the fastest growing areas of capital expense or capital spend in the market today. This right-hand side chart shows that when it comes to new construction investment across all the different sectors, there are ups and downs, or most of the sectors are on not that fast-paced growth. But you look at data centers particularly, and it's a different story. There's around 5,300 data centers in the US today, and they are on path to continue growing all the way through 2030. So this is expected to continue growing. And definitely AI is a big part of what has driven that growth. But also all the proliferation of these devices is key. So the storage and the space required to store all these rich data formats is going to continue driving not only new data center construction, but even existing data center expansion and upgrades. So this is an area where you should expect to see a lot of field service work, particularly when it comes to fiber cabling and testing, chip upgrades, continuous maintenance and hot swaps, and definitely, especially when it comes to fiber, this is an area of growth, especially for fiber and fiber testing. So expect that this will continue growing all the way through 2030. For those of you who are already doing data center work, you're fortunate. For those of you who are not, this is the time to really ride that wave. Another hot technology area is AV. This is an area that is expected for many research institutes to continue growing all the way through 2030 and beyond. Precedent Research here expects that this is going to be 8 billion and above in 2034. So this is continuing to grow and explosively actually grow because of the human nature of requiring a lot higher quality visuals, it keeps becoming more of a growing natural need. Two of the particular technologies that are really hot within AV today are the newer formats of conference room technology that are ready to install, very IT ready, room in a box, which is a ready format to configure and commission quickly, as well as video walls. Video walls, especially when it comes to the higher visuals quality, many consumers today want to take the theater experience home and install these or bring these video walls home to mimic the theater experience. And it is also in many sectors becoming a way to engage the customer. So video walls is another very hot technology within the AV space. And when it comes to point of sale is a little bit of a mixed story. So when you talk about the traditional point of sale has grown in terms of new deployments a little bit significantly post-COVID. So when you look at this bottom chart, it shows that growth post-COVID for new point of sale terminal installation increased significantly. It went through pent-up demand post-COVID, but that saturated the market a little bit and started going into single-digit growth. So the reason for that is saturated market, that's number one, but also number two, retailers are controlling and reducing their capital expense. So do not expect a lot of new installations when it comes to traditional point of sale. Expect that this will project itself to field services in more of upgrades, more of refreshes, especially to bring the non-NFC chips to become more NFC ready. This requires more pin pads and card reader upgrades and refreshes. But the new installations will mainly happen when it comes to mobile point of sale and newer, briefer formats, self-checkouts, the smaller formats that you might have already started seeing in some of the convenience stores or convenience/pharmacy like CVS and Walgreens. That smaller format self-checkout is becoming more in demand. And the new installations that will take place are going to be particularly in convenience and quick serve restaurants, particularly for mobile point of sale and self-checkouts. But when it comes to the traditional equipment, the traditional point of sale equipment, do not expect new deployments, expect more refreshes, more upgrades, and also more break fix. So break fix activity is in the rise, particularly for traditional point of sale, especially in places where it's mission critical, in places where it's not like 20 lanes or 15 lanes because it's mission critical, but also even in places where it's large format retail, because retailers want to make sure that they are preventatively and they are proactively maintaining their equipment so that they don't have to go back and invest a lot of capital expense into traditional point of sale. Most of the new deployments are going to happen in mobile point of sale and briefer formats, self-checkouts in quick serve restaurants and convenience. And this is expected to continue all the way through the next few quarters and through 2026. Now, when it comes to Wi-Fi, we talked about how, or wireless infrastructure in general, we talked about how important it is to support all this proliferation of devices, integrated security systems, new IP cameras, sensors and cameras in ODMBs, sensors and cameras in intelligent shelf technologies, in warehouses, in micro-fulfillment centers, in stores. All this is really putting more pressure on technology infrastructure, networking technology infrastructure, and on wireless. So what used to be a little bit of a luxury a couple of years ago on upgrading Wi-Fi 6 into Wi-Fi 6E and 7 is now a mandate. And so this will start taking place more in 2025 and 2026, where you're going to see a lot more demand to upgrade Wi-Fi 6 to 6E and Wi-Fi 7. And this requires potentially new cable runs, especially to support power over Ethernet, which this new wireless access points are capable of supporting new wireless access point upgrades. And this also brings the need for wireless surveys, especially that this is conducive to optimize the footprint of the stores for reducing the blind spots and for amplifying the bandwidth to enable all this device infrastructure. And this would require new wireless surveys as well. When it comes to desktop, laptop, the story is a little bit mixed. So the market was saturated during COVID and a little bit after COVID, and it went into a dip in 2023 and 2024. And this story is destined to even continue and a little bit become even more dire. So the 6% growth that we saw in 2024 is even expected per Canalys here, per even others, to drop into a 2% growth when it comes to new shipments. So most of the work within desktop laptop will be more of upgrades, especially for Windows 11 upgrades and refreshes, and more break, fix, and support activity, but do not expect new deployments that will actually dip below the levels of 2024. So this brings you the picture that even when you look at the market at a macro level, yes, it might have some gloomy picture, but when you peel the onion, there is a lot underneath that. Speaking of which, at Field Nation, we watch that very closely, and we see these 10 use cases really hot. Break fix is in the rise because of retailers and other sectors trying to reduce their CapEx spend and prolong the lives of the assets. New mobile point of sale installations, as I mentioned, the smaller format conference rooms or room in a box for AV, LED video walls, Wi-Fi upgrades, especially into Wi-Fi 7, data center hot swaps and capacity upgrades, and then the 5G site surveys, IP camera upgrades, EV charging station installation and commissioning. And because of the e-commerce and because of consumers requiring the flexibility to pick up and drop the shipments everywhere, the package locker kiosk installations. These are some of the hottest and double-digit growth use cases in Field Nation. We would love you to pay attention to and take this with you for your strategic planning and make sure that you are tracking them and tracking how your customers are requesting work around them. So what I would really love to leave you with, and before saying this, you might receive a poll to ask you for your feedback on the content that we've provided here. But would love you really to leave you with 3 key takeaways and actions. Number 1, do not take the macro level view as if it is the view. Peel the onion, look underneath the surface, embrace this granular view of growth, and equip your sales team to also be ready for that by helping them to prospect into this landscape and to embrace the cells in the grid that are growing. And get intimate with your customer and stay close to them as all these activities are taking place into their pipelines, and make sure that you're ready to serve them and meet with them where they need you. So this requires you to embrace all these activities and not to really niche yourself or pigeonhole yourself within 1 or 2 activities, but to really be prolific where the hot cells in that grid are. And also, because of all this volatility that we're seeing in general, make sure you hedge against that volatility. And that is by taking your P&L and variabilizing it. Embracing a variable labor model will enable you to respond faster to market opportunity and also be efficient. A fully fixed labor model will not enable you to be as efficient because it faces underutilization, excessive travel, what have you. And also it does not enable you to quickly respond to market opportunity. Embracing a hybrid workforce model, variable workforce model will enable you to respond faster, efficiently, and really hedge against this volatility of demand. Try to manage your costs and sift through all the process or your processes to make sure that you're weeding out any activities that do not align with customer value. And make sure that you retain some cash that would enable you to have the working capital to go back and invest into all these growth activities, and also definitely retain your best talent. So when we go through all these different cells in the grid that are hot, and that granularity of growth, that should bring you to one thing, which is that you should have the mindset of, I can do it. You really can do it. All these technologies are now network-ready technologies, mostly IP, network pluggable, configurable technologies that require you to re-leverage the capabilities you already have to go do all that stuff. You need to really embrace that I can do it mindset, and that's what you need to move forward with. There is a macro level, not rosy picture, but take a look underneath the surface, really peel the onion, and you're going to see a much more promising picture, and really embrace the mindset of I can do it. Hopefully that leaves you with some insights that you can take for your next planning. And thank you so much for joining us. Really looking forward to hear from you. If you have any follow-ups or any questions, make sure to leave them in the Q&A panel. Thank you so much.